which we've never really seen from him before.
We are now joined by the University of Houston Director of Athletics, Chris Pezman, one of the great friends of our show. We've gotten to know Chris the last couple of years after everything changed in 2021 for the four now new teams of the Big 12. Chris, thank you, with Paul, Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Thanks for your time. When you joined in the fall of 2021, did you ever realize that it might be four more on top of you?
No, I did not see this playing out. I mean, certainly as things progressed over the last year or so, you kind of hope maybe it could play out this way, but certainly did not envision this happening. And I think Brett said it best is, the dream scenario unfolded for us with the way the four corners were able to join us. And, before I came back to Houston, I was at Cal for 5 years. So having an understanding of the value of those brands, I couldn't be more excited for the future of our program and for our conference.
How does it just change your message in selling what's great about the University of Houston that you have to do, that you do every day, now that you even have a wider, it wasn't part of your plan was, hey, we're going to get to go to, BYU and play and all these things. But now you're talking about the legitimate, Phoenix and Utah even more. How much does it change what you were already planning to do?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've tried to express this, and I don't know if I found a great way of doing it, is, look, when we got into Big 12, it was a watershed moment for us. And in its own way, those four schools coming into the Big 12 and the stability and the continued trajectory that it establishes with the league, it was like hitting the lottery again. And I can't impress upon our fans and everybody that listens to this how important this move is for us as a league, because it continues to establish the trajectory of the league. And with the history of the Pac-12 and those four schools being able to feel comfortable to leave because of what we're doing as a league, it says so much about what's happening, about where we're all going to go as a group. And those guys were just with us the last couple of days. We had Big 12 meetings Wednesday and Thursday in Dallas, and they were with us, and they fit right in. And it was a genuinely, guys, I mean this. It's a good group of guys, and everybody is in it for the right reasons, and it couldn't be more exciting.
That's great to hear. I had Gene Taylor recorded something with him earlier today. We're going to have that in about an hour. And I asked him, I said, the key about when everything changed in the summer of 2021 was how close-knit the eight were. They had to be. They were kind of like maybe in some cases the way the Pac-12 has had to deal with recently. And then the four new schools, none of them could have been more thrilled than they were. And then, you get that some ADs or presidents are fighting for what they want to keep, but there have been a couple of comments made. You think that was just the initial shock and awe of what was going on, and they're now all in?
Yeah, they're all in. It was funny, and we all know what we're referring to. Our Ray at Arizona State, he and Ren played it really well to the group, and they had a lot of fun with it. And now everybody's in it. Look, Mark Harlan was at South Florida when I joined Houston. I'm trying to think who else. Dave Hickey, I've known for years at Arizona. Rick George at Colorado. All these guys, we work together in different facets. There's actually kind of a small working group that stayed in contact over the pandemic because we're all trying to figure out best practices of how to play football and play sports during the pandemic. And Dave and Rick were part of that group that I was with. And then taking those relationships and transferring them now into working together to solidify the league, it's just working. And it felt really, really natural, and it felt really good. And obviously once we start playing, everybody's, our hackles will get up and it'll get competitive, but that's all right. We're all pulling the rope the same way, and we can see what this league means to everybody and the path that we're on.
Chris, in terms of getting ready for this upcoming season, I mean, obviously just a lot to prepare for. What has been the focus? What have been, for those who don't know how it all operates behind the scenes, your biggest areas of interest and focus when it comes to getting ready for what's about to hit with football season?
Oh, man. I think I maybe said this before. It's a list, and it was probably 1,000 items long. Now we probably knocked it down to about 600 items. But we got a lot to get done. But it's coming together. We're preparing, frankly, for a lot of people to come back to the University of Houston that haven't been here in decades. And how do we put our best foot forward for them to experience the University of Houston, but also for us to represent the city in the best way possible. And, you know, in the Big 12, most of the schools were in college towns. I mean, Austin, maybe not as much, but Stillwater or Lawrence, Kansas, things like that. So when you're a big metropolitan area that's this big, how do we stand out more and how do we present ourselves? Because, you know, you get some advantages being in smaller towns because you own that market. Here we really have to elbow our way in to push out the Texans or the Astros that are all, there's a lot of excitement as those seasons begin. But getting ready for the fall, I mean, we probably put about $7 million into the stadium preparing for the fall, and that's new suites, new clubs, added gates, added concessions, everything we can do to try to maximize the fan experience as we start leveling up the peers that we're competing against and the experiences that people have at other venues. And obviously we got to, you know, we're basketball, you know, we're already working on basketball, and it's just, how do we deliver those environments and that game experience that keeps people off the couch and gets them into the venue? And there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously here in the South, playing football in September, it's hot as hell, right? Mm-hmm. We worked really hard to get night games. And so we don't have a day game that we're aware of, at least till early to mid-October, which is a huge win. And we're already seeing massive growth, as I've mentioned before, in season tickets. We're over 26,000 season tickets, over 7,500 new season tickets sold, and we still have 2 weeks to go. And, you know, Texans will probably sell out over the weekend. TCU's right behind it, as is UTSA. So we got some great news coming, and the community is galvanizing around the Big 12 and around the University of Houston participating in it.
Chris, the new schools, based on the television contracts with the networks, were able to get a full share coming in based on ESPN and also Fox. I know the four that are now a part of the conference took what is a smaller share this year and next, but still a very nice chunk compared to before. Was there any, not bitterness, but was there a little bit of, wait a minute, we're in it, why would we not get more?
Look, yes and no. You have that moment, but, you know, Brett had to make these deals work, and, you know, our TV partners stepped up in a big way with Fox and ESPN. And so Brett was really transparent with all of us about what he needed to do to get these deals done, to get those 4 new corner schools in. And we're all really comfortable with what Brett has delivered. And I don't think nobody's doing any side eyes at this point. You know what I mean? So everybody's in a really good place. And financially, you know, we're growing into this, all the 4 new schools with the rev share, with the TV distribution, where these other schools are coming in and they're already leveraged up. So we have to take that into account. We're going to be fine. I'm not worried about it. Our self-generated revenues are going to be up about 150% this fall as we go into the fall. So we're going to be all right. We've got a lot more work to do to continue to enhance our revenue opportunities. But, you know, the conference distribution and the way we had to make this work to get us to this point, everybody's comfortable and we're happy with where we are.
You touched on it there, Chris, but can you describe just, I guess, the overall feeling of the difference in the amount that's coming your way versus prior, and just how game-changing that is for the university?
Oh, guys, I mean, look, it allows me to keep Kelvin. I mean, to be honest with you, you know, Coach has had other opportunities, and to be able to hold on to him and get his contract done this last spring, that is what that financial lift allows us to do, is to get great coaches and hold on to them. You know, in the past, if we had a coach make a great run, they get hired away because we didn't have the resources to hold on to them. Now going in the Big 12, that's not a concern for me anymore. But also as we invest in every other aspect of student-athlete experience, health and welfare, nutrition, building out strength staff, mental health, all these things that we're doing. Alston money, which is something that was really difficult for us to fund in the American, now allows me to do that going into the Big 12. Again, that list, it's not 600 items long. It's probably about 100, but it allows us to start addressing all those things. And we're building into it over the first 3 years as we transition in the league. And we've got a great plan, and frankly, it's coming together. And that's what gets me genuinely excited. I can't wait for people to see what's coming.
Chris, you kind of broached on this with talking about Coach Sampson there. As an athletic director, is it a lot harder to lose a guy because you have to be like, look, we just can't get there on the money? Because all things being equal, most people don't want to move if they like their job. But if you've got life-changing money, sometimes you have to do that for yourself, as opposed to sometimes you're just going to have a coach that leaves because they want to go take that job, no matter what you offer or whatever. Is it harder when you just have to tell them, hey, I'm sorry, we don't have the cash?
Yeah, that, you put so much into building programs to get to this point, and then to have, and fortunately, it hasn't happened for me here. We dealt with that sometime at Cal with Sonny. We just capped out. We didn't have a lot of room to put more into him there and into the staff. And really, I think most of the time, it's not necessarily a head coach's compensation that becomes a sticking point for when they entertain other jobs. It's about what the money is around the assistants and the support programs, because that's what makes great coaches great. And the great ones know that, is how good is my staff and how can I hold on to them. And admittedly, we'd be able to do that as well. Whether it's Doug Belk with football or Kellen with basketball, having the means to be able to hold on to them and keep our head coaches in a good place, because they're great head coaches are great head coaches, but they're even better when they got great assistants, and we're really lucky with the staffs both of them have.
It's been a great run since the fall when we got to cover this as it was happening. And here you were, of course, Houston wanting to get in, as anyone would, because of the history of Houston and football. And now you look at it, and the way the landscape has changed, is it still a whirlwind in some ways for you?
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, look, we were in a call a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday, and we were talking about realignment and the possibility of some things possibly happening with the Pac-12. And, I'm sitting in there on a Zoom call, and I'm looking at these ADs, and we're talking about some Pac-12 schools, and I'm like, what world am I in where I'm in this meeting and we're in and they're out? And you're like, it completely flipped the script. And I'm like, it was bizarro world. I'm like, because we've been on the out, and you kind of, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or any of those things were kicking in, but yeah. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I maybe said a curse word under my breath. I'm like, son of a gun. It's too good to be true. And, which is probably a different word, but it just, yeah, it's been surreal, and I'm so genuinely excited about where we are. And again, being in this business, and you guys are around it, you understand the significance of it, and our fans are excited, but the things that are coming, I mean, let's just talk about the Big 12 basketball tournament in 2 years with Arizona and Kansas and Houston. And my God, that is a motherload of a basketball tournament. And that's just basketball. That's not baseball or football. I mean, this thing is just, it's a monster. And I can't wait for us to get this thing going this fall.
Yeah, Chris, it's so strange. 3 years ago, you're sitting around thinking, how do we get to the A5? And then 2 weeks ago, not only are you there, they're asking your opinion about who you should bring with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally. It was 2 years ago right now, because it was about, 60 or 90 days. It was around the July 1st when OU and Texas gave their notice. And right now, 2 years ago, I was burning phones up. I mean, it was anybody and everybody that would answer a phone for me over the course of the day. I would talk to them every day I could, because the landscape changes so quickly during these periods. You're not quite sure what information is accurate and how quickly it changes, as we've all seen over the last month, right? And so you go from this intense, hyper-intense period where you're working to get into 2 years later, you flash forward and you're in, just like we said, and now you're like, wait, we're talking about them being out and we're in. It's hard to express in words the reality of it, and I'm just so thankful.
So, Chris, this is non-realignment related, but it does very much have to do with the current college landscape. We had somebody the other day pass along a question from Mac Rhodes that was just very enlightening and interesting. And so there are a couple caveats here, if you'll bear with me. But let's say a donor came to you with $10 million to donate to the athletic department, and you could earmark that for something. Now, granted, schools are not directly involved in NIL, so let's just state that up front. We realize that. But let's say you maneuver the money wherever you want to. That's part of it. So if somebody came to Houston and said, here's $10 million, spend it on what's, at the top of the list, how would that money go as far as NIL, capital projects, as far as Houston's situation and just today's landscape, knowing that, what would Chris Pezman do with that money first?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually got this from a donor about a week ago about discretionary gift or not. And honestly, it's about 50-50. We're in the process right now of fundraising for a football building that starts after this season. And that's a $140 million project. We're about $70 million raised on that project. And that project will generate about about $95 million in revenue with the premium, but that's over like 30 years. So I need to hit about 90 is my goal. So I've got about 15 million more to go, or 25 million more to go in a perfect world.
Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, please finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then the other side of that is, NIL. And so really probably 50-50 is the answer, because NIL is not going away. And that is something that we've worked really hard to hold on to our kids, and how that money works is really been for us with retention of kids. So I would say 50-50. I'd love to know what Mac's answer was.
What did he say?
Well, initially, didn't he say,
he said, I can't say NIL.
Yeah.
He thought I was trying to trick him. But no, I think what did he say? He went to facilities, right?
Yeah.
I think he said facilities was what he would ultimately go with.
Only because of the current rules is the way
but I think, that would have gone some NIL route too if it could, absolutely.
Do you think that whenever there are clarifications on the rules, that one of them needs to be, hey, can we just admit that all this is way you can say, yes, here's the fund. It would be easier for you guys to be involved, especially if the athletes are going to be getting the same thing they're getting right now. Just that way you can direct them to the places that they need to be and that are more reputable.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to clear it up. We need to have transparency. The whole point of a sports league or a conference is to create competitive equity or competitive balance. And right now, because of NIL living outside, and I don't know what other word to use other than salary cap, right? No salary cap exists. So you've got inequities in the way that money is being used across institutions, which creates a problem, right? And some are using it to entice kids to come in. Some are using it for retention. Some whatever. I can't imagine whatever else it's being used for. So we got to get to where it's a set amount, and we've got to have some transparency around it, and we've got to be able to make sure it's equitable and consistent, because right now without that you're just going to have wild swings, and to me that just doesn't seem right. We've got to get past that, because it's going to start affecting the product on the field here, and whether that happens over one season or 5 seasons, we're going to see that talent moving, and I don't know how to make that better. One of the big benefits we have was scholarship reduction. A long time ago, you used to have unlimited scholarships. Then it went down to 105, now down to 85. And you've seen that parity play out. But now with the NIL moving around, I don't know that parity can continue as much. And that's why we need to figure out a way to have some transparency and balance around it.
You mentioned the football operations. Your last home game is against Oklahoma State. Is it right after that when you start to begin that, I guess, groundbreaking, and the rest is history?
Yeah, so that we play Oklahoma State on Saturday. On Sunday, they're bringing pardon the pun, but a big ass crane in, putting on the stadium. They're gonna take apart the video board in the upper deck, and then for the next fall, for fall of 24, the video board will be up and operational. It'll be about 3 times bigger than the one that is now. It'll be literally sideline to sideline. The steel structure will be in place for the football building, and then that building will be able to move into it for fall of 25. And it is going to be. We'll have some new renderings coming out here very soon in the next couple of weeks, and that thing is kick-ass. It is going to be a game changer for us. And obviously everybody says that, but this is going to be really, really fun. I can't wait for people to see it. It's going to be pretty cool.
Football ticket sales for TD ECU Stadium record. And then you had 26,000 more single game tickets that have now gone on sale as they start to get gobbled up. That's the next part of the process.
Yeah, we're over 30,000 sold for UTSA, and we're less than 1,000 tickets left for Texas. Got a couple thousand left for TCU. So we're right there. We're tracking for a bunch of sellouts, and the response from the community has been so exciting. And once we get playing, it's only going to build, because I think we got a chance to have a fun season. I was out of practice this morning, and I like what I see. It's going to be a fun year.
Speaking of that, as a former player and as the director of athletics, when you watch practice, is it as a businessman or a talent or personnel or coaching evaluator?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Probably a little bit of both, or all of it. You know, as a meathead linebacker, you're always looking for a fullback. Nobody uses them anymore. So, it kind of screws you up when you're watching pass pro or run fits. But I think you're looking at talent, and honestly, I watch our coaches coach a lot. I like to hear what they're teaching the kids. I like to see the way they teach and the way our kids respond to them, because you like to see the younger guys, because those guys, naturally are going to progress somewhere else along in their career. And I'd love to say Dana's going to retire here, but he may retire after 1 or 2 more years of NIL and transfer portal for all I know. And you got to figure out who the next person is. So I really like to keep an eye on the young guys and watch them coach. We got some special ones. We hired a new guy, Iman Igavi, he's our new O-line coach, came from Tulane, but he's an old Katy High School guy. He's got a lot of juice, and obviously Doug Belk and some other guys that are on the staff. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we've got a lot of good young coaches, and they're doing a good job. I like how we're attacking our plan for the season. A lot more depth, a lot more size in the team, and I like where we're going.
Last thing, Chris, is that you had time at Cal, and this is not by any means trying to set you up with anything, but you were there. Could you have imagined when you were there, or did you see anything that was starting to maybe have cracks in the wall that led to what we've seen the last 13 months with the Pac-12?
Oh man, I didn't see this coming. Not like this, not them getting left out. They're such a prestigious brand, and the academics and the amount of research dollars and their stature as an institution academically is so significant. But, without being dismissive of the people that are there, the work they're doing, they never had the alignment institutionally is a little tougher. They've got one board that oversees the entire UC system. So here at Houston, like, our board of regents is really involved. They're around us all the time. They're the same board that oversees UCLA, oversees Cal, also oversees Davis and all the others. So it's easy to get distracted, and I don't understand how quickly the changes are coming. And so, with the realignment, when it started with, 2 years ago with UT and OU, or last year with UCLA and USC, without the board being embedded with you as much, it's hard then to react to moments like this where you've got to be hyper nimble and hyper engaged. To spin everybody up is a lot harder to do, because at that point it's too late. Everybody's already reacted. And I would tell you that would be probably the lesson that comes out of this, is just don't take your eye off the ball, because look, this is not over. I mean, I think we're in a great place, until 2032, but we just have to be mindful that if we're not paying attention, something can get you. And so you just got to keep your eyes on the horizon with the realignment. Who knows what happens with the ACC? You've heard a lot of chatter out of there, and how that could create another cascade effect. And so we just have to be prepared that if things happen in those cases, that we're mindful and we're aware of it, and that we're always working on a plan.
Chris, we do appreciate it. Love the segment with you whenever we get it. We really do. Look forward to it down the road as well. Thank you so much for what you've accomplished, what you guys still need to do along the way, and we appreciate your time.
Well, fellas, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed the time. The conversation, the questions are great. And can't wait to get you guys down to Houston for a game. Hopefully get you down here this fall and give you a hard time.
Look forward to it. Absolutely. I could see where